It is the only way forward. If every man in the country starts going to the gym and starts making lots of money and starts having sex with lots of
I mean, these are all outcomes, but okay.
attractive women, and yet they don't get married and stay married and have children and raise and love those children, then we will still be headed to ruin. It'll be a slightly different kind of ruin, but ruin all the same.
So what Matt is defending is not happiness and is not fulfillment. What Matt is defending right now is the simple institution of marriage. That's it. That's the only thing he is defending right now. He's not looking out for men. He's not looking out for society. What he is defending an institution where he finds, where in his conception, men are the leaders. There is no version of a marriage for him where a man isn't the leader that is good. Okay. Anyway, let's get started. We kind of got to go a bit quick here, but let's get into this. Since this is the guy who wants to be the next one.
With a discussion about the crisis of
holy shit. Okay, we definitely can't do that at let's try 1.5.
We opened the show yesterday with a discussion about the crisis of masculinity and the rise of Andrew Tate. And to very briefly summarize the key points made in that conversation, boys are growing up in a culture that is openly hostile to masculinity, and many are forced to navigate the minefield without the benefits of strong male role models to show them the path. And this crisis...
For the most part, I'd say that's true. For the most part, I would say that's true.
This is self-perpetuating. It grows exponentially because the young men with absentee fathers eventually become absentee fathers themselves, repeating the cycle indefinitely unto infinity. And into
also, that's where I disagree. I don't think we have a problem of absentee fathers. That's not really the problem here. The problem is that men in 2023 are not equipped with the ability to enter society and create valuable relationships, interpersonal relationships with women or with the people that they want to have those relationships with in a successful manner. That's the actual problem here.
This field of confusion and man hatred steps guys like Andrew Tate and others, quickly earning an enormous following of young men who understandably flock to somebody who has a message that embraces masculinity rather than treating it like a disease. Andrew.
So here's another big thing. Masculinity. Let's be clear. Masculinity as a definition is not static. The masculinity that Matt Walsh advocates for and what Andrew Tate advocates for is the exact same masculinity that people have been advocating for probably the last 100 years. It is a version of masculinity which in 2023 is outdated, and more importantly is it's not what you need right now. Masculinity, this frame of masculinity that these guys talk about is an old one. Is not a if you're a guy right now, if you're in high school or even if you're starting college, you would not want to be learning from 50-year-old textbooks. You would not want to be learning from 60-year-old, 80-year-old teachers who haven't been to a modern website. At the end of the day, what masculinity needs as a social construct, and that's what it is, masculinity, and the concept of masculinity and the concept of being a man needs to be less static and needs to be fit for the correct time. Being somebody like Andrew Tate or Matt Walsh, who don't respect women in the way that is in an equal manner, I would say, I guess I would say, will not provide you, will not garner you success, will not garner you the relationships you're looking for. The advice Andrew Tate gives you will not give you the results you want. It would have 100 years ago. It won't now. And I know that's like, it sucks. But what we're talking about, masculinity, how men function in society, these things are not static. These things are not what's the word? Are not these hard scientific laws. Masculinity is not gravity. So having a centuries old understanding of what masculinity is will not bring you the results you're looking for. It simply won't. And approaching other people with that mindset will not bring you success. So, you know.
Andrew Tate, very often good at identifying.
Also, I just want to say, I understand that there are women, there are feminists in the world who hate men. This is 100% a thing. There are many of them out there that just hate men. You will not ever be able to counter that in a positive fashion by just hating women. By mirroring that attitude, you don't solve any of the problems you would like to solve. You don't change the discourse, and you certainly don't push yourself forward as an individual to creating a better world, which is the thing you should want to be doing as a man or woman for that matter. But as a man, I think there's an expectation that we affect the world in a positive manner. So if that's part of your conception of masculinity, you should want a solution that brings forward positivity.
The positive
outcomes
as they pertain to the situation that men face, and deserves credit for speaking up in defense of masculinity rather than denigrating it and calling for its eradication, essentially. But in my view, he misses the mark when it comes to the remedy. He seems to basically understand the disease, but he doesn't have the right prescription for it, or at least the full prescription. Yes, men should reject the programming that our culture wants to subject them to, programming which seeks to neuter and feminize them. Yes, they should.
So this is Matt Walsh pretends that it's programming. It's not programming. It's what we're talking about very simply is, do you assimilate to modern society or do you not? Would you like to participate in modern society or would you not? There is no, there's no programming that's happening here. What we are seeing in today's world is simply that being a certain type of man in 1932 is, being X kind of man will get you, a wife with a white picket fence and kids and da-da-da-da-da. But it doesn't do that anymore. It's not going to. So you wasting your time and you trying to brute force this not just this mindset, but this worldview, this way to approach people, is damaging. It's not going to result in good, and it's only going to serve to make you more frustrated and make you more angry, because you're going to try harder and harder in a way that's not going to be helpful, in a way that's not going to be productive. There is no programming. It's simply like Matt wants to make this Matt wants to make this about changing you. And guess what? You should change. You should. You should grow as a person. You should change as a person. The person you are at 16 should not be the person you are at 9, and should not be the person you are at 28. As a human, you should seek to change, to evolve, and to grow, and to understand more. And with more context, come to different outcomes. Sometimes, or come to different solutions. Sometimes you won't. And that's okay. But you need to be open to that. So,
work hard. They should take care of their minds and their bodies. Yes, they should strive for success, including financial success. But a life of hedonism and materialism and luxurious wealth, remaining unmarried while sleeping with dozens of different women and so on, is not the ideal to strive towards.
He is right. If that now, he's right in the sense that it depends on what you're looking for. If you want all of those things, if if you want to have multiple partners, if you want to be more free with your like sexual activity, by all means, go forth. Free country, you do what you want. But again, if that's not what you're looking for, which is mostly what Andrew Tate is offering, is a very is this weird solution of like being a misogynist and like being kind of an asshole to attract more women, but that's not what you want. You want a functional relationship. I don't know that many guys who are Andrew Tate fans who want these kind of frivolous relationships. They want real relationships. But the only thing he can offer them is shallow, meaningless ones.
Rather, what men are called to and created for, and the only sort of life that will be truly happy, that they'll find true happiness and joy in.
You're not called to anything. That might be hard to hear. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I'm not sure. But you're not called to do anything. And the sooner you start living your life for you and not for, not for other people's expectations of you, the happier you will start to become. When you start making decisions based on what you want for your life and what you want for your for your future, and not you're not concerned with what your church wants, you're not concerned with what your parents want, you're not concerned with what your what your societal function is. Focus on you and what you want and the impact you want to leave behind.
Is a life of service as protector and provider. Men, the vast majority of men anyway, are called to be husbands and fathers, to be leaders of their families. Now, they may be called to lead in other ways too, but first they must care for their families. If there's any saving our civilization at this point, which I think there is, but if there is, this is how it will be done. And this is who will do it. It's not going to be saved by influencers who are sitting in front of cameras, whether the guy in front of the camera is Andrew Tate or me or anyone else.
Or me.
It'll be saved through the formation and preservation of strong, intact, loving, and well-led families.
Now, he is right in the broad strokes, wrong in the specifics, because men are not required to be the leaders. They're not required to be, they're not called to service. None of that. Fellas, all you're called to is to take care of you and take care of your loved ones. That doesn't mean always being the breadwinner. That doesn't mean always being the leader. What that is understanding your place and being fluid enough in how you operate to fit as many situations as possible. That means, for me, an aspect of my masculinity personally is being a calming force. What that means to me is during times of either hardship, strife, or like a lot of times it ends up at work, just generally being a lot of high stress situations, a value that something that I draw value from in my conception of masculinity is being calm, is being a calm voice, is being not necessarily a leader all the time. Sometimes I am the leader and sometimes I'm not. And an understanding of where you're fitting in while doing your thing, whether that's being calm, whether that's being the planner, whether that's being any of those type of roles in stressful situations. Understanding your role is the best thing you can do to stay true to you, not over encumber yourself with all of the rest of this nonsense, while drawing value from your experiences.
That is the only way. It is the only way forward. If every man in the country starts going to the gym and starts making lots of money and starts having sex with lots of
these are all outcomes, but okay.
Attractive women, and yet they don't get married and stay married and have children and raise and love those children, then we will still be headed to ruin. It'll be a slightly different kind of ruin, but ruin all the same.
So what Matt is defending is not happiness and is not fulfillment. What Matt is defending right now is the simple institution of marriage. That's it. That's the only thing he is defending right now. He's not looking out for men. He's not looking out for society. What he is defending an institution where he finds, where in his conception, men are the leaders. There is no version of a marriage for him where a man isn't the leader that is good. And that is damaging. It's damaging because it leaves men and, young men who listen to somebody like Matt Walsh with an inability to understand an interpersonal relationship without being the main a dominant force. It requires that even in a framework of communal living, that men should still be at the authority figure. And again, it is this constant. You always have to be the leader. You always have to do this. You don't always have to do any of that stuff. The rest of that is how you conceptualize it. You need to pick that for yourself.
Those men themselves will ultimately find the happiness that they are able to derive in that lifestyle. They'll find that it's shallow and it's fleeting. And in the end, they'll die alone, loved by no one, loving no one, remembered by no one, leaving no legacy behind. The feminized and neutered and effeminate man that our left-wing culture seeks to create, and then this other sort of man, both unmarried, both childless.
It's funny. The feminine man, the thing he just described, left-wing men, fun fact, happier. For everything that he said, as much as he doesn't like the feminization of men, as much as he doesn't like men who are feminists like myself, would you like to know the difference between me and someone like Andrew Tate? I'm happy. Does Andrew Tate seem happy to you? Not really. I mean, he's always angry. He's always yelling. He's always complaining. He's always, he's always clearly emotionally affected by his interactions with women and lashes out in a violent way. Why am I happy and he's not? Even though he's got more than me, technically. It's not because I'm married. I'm not married yet. But it is because I approach interpersonal relationships and my romantic interpersonal relationships in a less toxic and more healthy manner. Matt Walsh can put all of the negative adjectives he'd like to, but at the end of the day, people on the left, people who are married, people who are, even more leftist, feminist adjacent men are happier.
Will look very similar in the end, having taken two very different paths just to arrive together at essentially the same place. It's the family man, the devoted father and husband, whose different path actually leads to a different and much better conclusion.
This is a meme. That's all this is. Understand, what he's giving you is just dogma and is just, I'm going to tell you the thing that you think is the ideal is right. But, there's no, how many men are unhappy in their marriage? Even though their marriage is, for all intents and purposes, the ideal, form of marriage. That's not what, format, marriage in and of itself does not bring happiness.
Now, I've, of course, been preaching this message for as long as I've had an audience to preach to, and I have found that there are like two or three basic responses or rebuttals, I guess, that I always hear from young men who may, for the most part, line up with me ideologically, but who doubt the wisdom of the get married and have kids prescription. And I was greeted with the same responses after the show yesterday and many messages and comments. What I'd like to do today is answer the objections, or at least what seems to be the one principal objection.
Mm-hmm.
The claim that I so often hear is that, well, marriage and family life is a trap. It's a scam, especially for men. The whole thing is rigged against us. There is nothing for a man.
Yeah. So men, in the conception of what Matt Walsh is talking about, is the version of marriage Matt is talking about is, I wouldn't say a scam, but is damaging. And at the end of the day, puts men in a position where they must, they must fill in all of these roles, all of these extra roles on top of simply being a loving husband and being a participant of like in the family. So like the system Matt is talking about and the format he's talking about isn't actually fulfilling for a lot of guys. How many guys who don't really like their families that much, take every opportunity to take a break from their families because, in their version of getting married, they're the strong leader who's dragging their family behind them and trying to, it's damaging. Means you're always put upon by the people who you're supposed to love all the time. You yourself are putting a negative frame, a negative spin on everything your family does because of the way you've approached marriage.
Man to do, but give up on the entire enterprise and go his own way. In fact, there's a whole movement online. Men go their own way.
Yeah,
that's basically the idea. Just give up on this stuff and do something else. This argument was summarized in a comment from a listener named Joshua, which I'll read because I think it just
that's
is
me.
Representative of this sort of mentality.
I mean, it's not, but
he says, still sounds like Matt and most tradcons' definition of what masculinity means is exclusively through the lens of women and children's wants and needs. Unfortunately, that ideal will no longer work in the modern world with birth control, hookup culture, social media, and court systems that favor women and the denigration of traditional masculinity. I don't agree.
So he was actually kind of right in the beginning of that, in the sense that masculinity, as defined by Matt Walsh, is basically only like based on services that men can provide to women and children, which men are more than just providers. Like, we are also people. Oh my fucking god, are you transphobic? I'm transphobic. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hello, Olivia. How are you doing? You're very coming in really hot there. I mean, I appreciate you having very strong opinions, but you're coming in very hot. Also, I'm not a transphobe. But anyway, let's continue.
Agree with all of Tate's views, but it sure beats Matt's prescriptions for young men. Again, I've read a great many comments making the same kind of point.
Yes, I too also am not a fan of Matt Walsh.
A private message.
Mostly we're just going over his, Matt Walsh is attempting to be the next, the vanguard of Andrew Tate's platform, which I don't think is going to work out very well, but he's certainly trying.
The listener has a similar theme. Says, Matt, I agree with many of your opinions, but your message to men is off base. Young men follow Andrew Tate because his lifestyle is the ideal, whether you admit it or not. Wealth, fame, status, beautiful women were biologically programmed to want those things. Marriage is a...
So you would have to think that like wealth and like money as a concept has somehow been ingrained in humans from like a evolutionary level, which it's not. It's the closest thing we have to that is social hierarchies. But even those, again, are socially created. People aren't attracted to money and wealth because money and wealth are interesting. Money and wealth just give you an ability to manifest your interests and to practice your hobbies and to just kind of live as stress-free of a life as you can at like a whim. That's the only thing money and status is going to get you, really, at the end of the day. Like, meaning if women are looking for men of high status or like wealth, what they're actually looking for is people who practice their hobbies, people who are enthralling by their enthusiasm to not be I guess part of the rat race to a degree, but also as a, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a reason why. Like, Andrew Tate has his cars, right? But Andrew Tate's not interesting because because he's got a Lamborghini. He's not interesting for that, mate. Like, bro, if he's not interesting because he has a Lamborghini, I don't, like, nobody's interested. Women don't know what the fuck, and normal people don't know any of the mechanics or any kind of understanding of why I give a shit about a Lamborghini. What I care about, and the people that, like, people will actually find interesting, are if you know somebody who's like a car guy or a car person in general, somebody who knows a lot about like motor vehicles and how they work and the mechanics of them. These people are interesting. The only thing buying a Lamborghini and the rest of this does is let you affect being an interesting, engaging person. It's the only thing you really get from any of this. So this whole like, oh, you need to have wealth and status. Spare me. There are millions of people who don't have wealth or status and somehow still have girlfriends, boyfriends, and relationships. Like, I don't know what this is. This is nonsense. This is, now granted, he's talking, like, the people he's addressing are MGTOWs. So, like, they are, they say men going their own way. I'll be honest. These are men who have given up. These are men who have tapped out. And you know what? I get it, man. I get it. Life's hard out there. But, like, for God's sakes, like, you giving up isn't gonna make your life any better. You're just gonna end up living, you giving up is just going to leave you with the same emptiness as when you tried and failed. But at least you have a chance of succeeding when you try. MGTOWs are a whole different type of bag of people, man. But yeah, that's who he's addressing. Let me read this. While Matt Walsh is working on a stupid 20-page comic book, I'm working on a 400-page transgender experience book, personal. He literally looks and dresses like a 10-year-old with a beard. He definitely dresses like, Matt definitely dresses what he thinks like men should look like, which, I mean, I like flannel as much as the next guy, but it's the difference between liking flannel and affecting what you think you should like. But
A losing game. The only solution in modern society is to reject the life of service, as you call it. So what is the problem with this view? Well, to begin with, it's nothing less than a full unconditional surrender to the culture. It's true that the culture has increasingly made it difficult for both men and women to form and maintain strong, intact, lasting families.
Again, let's all remember, the culture of equality is what he's talking about. Women being equal to men is oppressive to men, which is bullshit. It's a loser activity right here. It's loser stance.
And that's because the elites who run our society don't want you to live that kind of life. They prefer that you focus on your individual wants, on fulfilling your own needs and satisfying your own desires.
Yes.
That's what they prefer for you. That's the life they want for you. A self-focused life is precisely the sort of life they wish for you.
Exactly. And the reason for that, he is right on this fact. He is correct that specifically but a lot of people more broadly on the left will advocate for people to live a more fulfilling individual life. And the reason for that is because we live in a society now, we live in a society, but we live in a society now where women do not need men to provide really anything. So now that your whole provider thing has been undermined and it isn't the selling point, what do you need to do? Be a whole person. Be a whole fucking person. Have interests, have hobbies, have desires, have wants, have ambitions. Focus on you, and people will gravitate towards you because you'll be fucking interesting. Like, for fuck's sake.
Makes you easier to manipulate. Less of a threat to their agenda. Not really a threat at all. I mean, if you're just out there focused on yourself, being a consumer, buying lots of things for yourself, consuming things for yourself.
Wait, that's what Andrew Tate says. I don't believe you need to be consuming things. You need to be, like, watering your hobbies. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to buy a fucking Lamborghini or something. But, like, again, interest. Fuck's sake.
And all the rest of it. You're not a threat to their agenda at all. I mean, you're going along with it. All of the things.
Also, does the left wing peddle fucking vitamin supplements and shit. Is that what we do?
Mentioned by Joshua in his comment. All of those things represent a conspiracy against the family. He's right about that. The way the family court systems are set up, birth control, all the rest of it. It's an attack on the family. So what is
you say?
To give up? To give the conspirators exactly what they want? To reward them for their efforts by turning your back on the very thing they've been assaulting for decades?
Ugh.
The family is the fortress that they have been attacking. And you can defend it with your life, or you can wave the white flag. But if you choose to surrender, then at least be honest about what you're doing. Be honest. This is not a rejection of the left's agenda, of the cultural elite's agenda. You are submitting to it. It is a submission.
It is a submission.
It's
this is
certainly
true.
not a strong or masculine response to run away and abandon your post. To stop fighting because the fight is.
Now, obviously, it's disturbing that that a lot of people laugh with him and not at him. More people need to laugh at Matt Walsh. See, the problem also is Matt constantly does this like wartime rhetoric when it's just people trying to live their lives, which I don't think, which at the end of the day is going to put you in a mindset that puts you in opposition to everybody around you. When you approach life, when you approach other people with a oppositional wartime frame to just how you operate as a person, you will end up naturally there's almost no way to not approach people with hostility, to approach people with hatred, with distrust. And you can't build relationships, you can't build positive relationships if you can't trust people. At the end of the day, what Matt Walsh is offering, and what Andrew Tate at the end of the day is offering, is for you to stay in your little bubble, never trust anybody, and never build a meaningful relationship that you're not empowering. And again, we were in 1923. Maybe this would be good advice. But we're in 2023. Now, Matt's trying to make this about, destroying the family. The only thing the left wants to do is destroy his concept of family, which is authoritarian and cringe. But no, your life is not a campaign against some nebulous ideological opponent. Your life is your life, and fucking make something of it. Fucking go out there, learn a skill, find a hobby, do something, become a whole person. You will just naturally attract people. The magnetism of your person will be enough eventually. But you gotta work at it. Work on yourself.
Too difficult. I mean, that approach is many things, but it certainly isn't manly. And where do you go instead? I mean, what is the next move? To give up on the family is to give up on human civilization. Seeing as how there cannot be a human civilization without the family. So what's plan B after you've given up on civilization? What's next? You're also giving up on yourself, on your own legacy, your own bloodline. You are descended from a long line of men stretching back thousands of years who formed families and raised children. How
about this? Okay, I've kind of seen enough. He's made enough of an argument, and I'm also running a little bit late. I'm going to wrap this up. Let's be really clear here. Matt Walsh, at the end of the day, wants you to forego your own personal identity, your own personal growth, your own personal, personal actualization, and trade that in for civilization, trade that in for the proliferation of masculinity that Matt Walsh respects, or the masculinity that conceptually fits into his worldview. No. I've said it multiple times during this. You, as a man, probably want to be successful with the ladies. Understandable. Totally understandable. I've been there. I was in high school once. I was in college once. Not for that long, but once. And the thing that you're going to need to learn is in 2023, You are not here. The burden of being a human servant to women and children, the burden of being of needing to be the leader, of needing to be the the forerunner, the need to be constantly the person out front. You've been lifted of that burden. And now what society is asking of you, and more specifically what women are going to be looking for in you, is an ability to manifest your personality and to project that out into the world and to be a three-dimensional person. That's what you want to be focusing on. Now, Matt can talk about civilization. He can make you worry about, oh my God, if I don't date this girl, then 20 years from now, she won't have kids with me, which means we won't further the American of the heteronormative civilization, and because of that, now I'm not doing my part as a man in society, and because I'm not doing that, I'm failing not only my family but my forefathers and his fathers before him and everything else. Take a deep breath. Lift yourself of that burden, and you will find that at the end of the day, you have you and you have your time each day. You got your 24 hours in the day. Utilize those 24 hours to make a better version of you. And you will find that people will be way more interested in you when you're not thinking about civilization and about 40 years down the road and about your forefathers 8 billion years ago. Focus on the now and focus on where you want to be and who you want to be around and what kind of person that you want to be. Focus on those things. Take your mind off of this stuff. Not because it's, the civilization stuff. That's going to happen regardless of whatever you personally do. The thing that they tell, at the end of all YouTube videos where they tell you to click on one of these things to watch more videos. Yeah, I've been meaning to film one of those. So that's what I was doing. I was just setting it up to film one.